Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Like Earthkeeper here, and I have John Davila with me. We are doing a 3-part happiness series, and this is part 2. So thank you so much for joining in and tuning in, and thank you, John, for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me. So what we talked about last time was, why do we want to be happy? Do we want to be happy? And what would that look like? And how the world around us would react to it. So we want to go back over that. One of the things we brought up was a lesson that I learned later in life is angels cannot communicate with us if we're down in the mud. If you're depressed, if you're the lower frequencies, if you're in rage, if you're in regret, you've got to come up in frequency. They say to them it feels like your skin is on fire. It's just too painful. So unless they really have to do it, they will not do it. So what I was doing wrong all my life was, if I'm focused on something, a problem, a situation I'm trying to solve, I'm down there, Mr. Engineer, dwell on it and come up with a solution. And what I learned from that was, what my mother was trying to tell me was, write it down and just let it go. Because as you relax, all of a sudden the solution shows up. Mm. So one of the things I wanted to do in a follow-up to that is, one of the things I love about mysticism is when you see things in popular Hollywood movies that match what you've been taught and what you're learning, yet it's not the common belief, and yet nobody protests the movie. It's all kind of, well, that makes sense, that's okay. Wait a minute, really? You're okay with that? I'll give you a couple examples. The movie Amadeus, Mozart is a happy-go-lucky guy. He's a genius, right? He just sits down at the keyboard and just starts playing, he's so bored with life and everything is going his way. He's lucky and nothing's going to stop him. And there is his competition, Salieri, who is so angry at God because you made this disrespectful scum so gifted, and he's getting so much attention, and he writes things in his head, doesn't even write them down, and I am sitting here struggling with a piece of paper trying to come up with my creation and trying to impress the king and all that. There's the difference right there. It's so well presented that throughout that movie, like there's, Amadeus, okay, he's out of money, he's got debts, he's got whatever, but he comes out with a new opera and everything's fine. It just all works out. If you've ever seen 2.5 Men, this is with a big argument between Alan and Charlie. Charlie is happy-go-lucky. He writes his music, he gets a big check, and Alan is just sitting there gritting his teeth. Wow, isn't that something? That kind of fits what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. That's not what I was taught in grade school.
Right.
That's not how the universe works.
You have to take it seriously.
Hard work.
Yeah.
That's right. Struggle.
But It's a different frequency. And when you are on a higher frequency where all is well and we're swimming along, then things just flow. But then when you come down to the lower frequency and you're grasping and clinging and frustration,
they can't help you.
They'd
like to, but they can't.
Yeah, it's like constrictive, rigid energy.
Yep.
Things don't flow. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. One of the things I've also noticed over the years is I like to pick up books on blue zones, who are the happiest people on earth. One of the groups that have been picked out in most of these studies is the people of the Kalahari. They were demonstrated in the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, came out in the 80s. And it started watching these tribes go through the Kalahari, and they own nothing. They own their loincloth, that's it. The only tool they carried with them is a rock, because where they were, you don't see rocks very often. And this one happens to be just the right size. So we really like this rock. And the story starts about a pilot who flew over and threw a Coke bottle out the window, and it landed, and they picked it up and said, "This is a handy tool." And they started using it. And then the problems that tool brought them, because it was only one, they couldn't get another one, and they had 3 people who needed to be cooking at the same time. And the story just went on and on and on about how Key, who is the leader of the tribe, decided this is evil, this is not from God, where the gods were crazy the day they gave this to us, not like what they usually do for us, and I'm going to go throw it off the end of the earth. So the movie is about his trek to go to the end of the earth to throw this Coke bottle off and all of the things that happened to them. And what happens is, on the way there, he comes in contact with civilization.
Mm.
And that's when he decides the gods are crazy. Look what these people are doing. Look at all the work they're putting in, the clothes they wear, and the buildings they build. And why are they doing this? They're really crazy. Because all you have to do is sit under that tree over there, dig for a root, and get a drink. They're just making life so hard for themselves.
More complex, yeah.
Fabulous. If you've ever seen the movie, you're like me, you're passionate about it, and you loan it out to all your friends going, you got to see this movie at least once in your life. Another movie I think that's great is called Defending Your Life. This one has Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks in it, and Shirley MacLaine in it. And this is a story where people that die in North America go to this, there's 3 of these, the story is that there are 3 of these facilities in North America. And you go there, and you're kind of sleepy and everything, and they bring you a hotel and you get some sleep, and then you wake up the next day, and it kind of looks like Disney World. There's trams going around, there's hotels, and the food is just delicious, and you go to this trial, but they don't like to call it a trial. They like to call it a hearing or something like that. And you've got a prosecutor and you got a defender, and you're defending your life. And they're going through 9 or 12 days of your life that are a representation of your whole life. This is what happened to you on that day, and they're showing a video on a screen. It's really interesting the way they do it. But the one problem I have with this movie is they keep talking about it's all about fear. Mm. They're using the word fear. Mm. Why you don't try new things, why you're not happy, why your life is not being a success is because you're too afraid to do stuff. Mm-hmm. You're too afraid of failure. You're too afraid. I guess I just don't identify with that personally myself, that I don't feel like I'm that afraid. I may be uneducated and I may be inexperienced, but I don't view it as fear.
But fear is more of a restrictive, constrictive energy.
Yep. So in this case, Albert Brooks is kind of afraid most of his life, and he doesn't take a lot of, opportunities that came his way. They were presented, and he decided, no, I'm too scared to do that. I'm not going to do that. Started in his childhood, and they showed, several days through his childhood where the lady in the movie, I just went blank. She took every opportunity that came her way. Her house caught on fire. She ran in there to go get her kids. She ran in there to get the dog. She didn't let anything stop her.
Fearless.
She was fearless, yeah. So at the end they said, well, okay, you're going to go back. You're going to go ahead. They weren't real clear about ahead to what. And they said, Albert, you're going to have Meryl Streep, right? Well, she was going to go ahead. And then Albert Brooks was going to have to go back, and work on his problems. One of the best parts of Shirley MacLaine, it's like Disney, so they went to the Past Lives Pavilion. Mm. So you sat there in a little booth, and you're looking at a screen, and you're watching a video of your past lives. So Albert Brooks is watching what's supposed to be him, a native in Africa, being chased by a lion. And she says, I'm Joan of Arc. Who are you? I'm dinner. So it's this what they're showing is this pattern goes on over and over and over in our lives until we decide, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm moving on. I don't care. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Let's go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of entertainment, a lot of lessons, and a lot of interesting Hollywood ways of presenting this, I thought. There's another movie out called Astral City. This is the Brazilian version of this. I stumbled across it in YouTube, and I worked in Brazil, and I helped sponsor a lady who came to live in the United States from Brazil. And the first copy of the movie was in Portuguese. And I believe there's an English version out now. It's subtitled in English. They didn't portray it as being so Disney-like. It was more of a building in the woods kind of a thing. And they showed people coming in. They're the same kind of scenario. You know, they're kind of out of it and everything, and they let them sleep it off. In this story, the first thing they do is they do Reiki healing on them and heal their body physically from whatever they had been through. Then they sit with them and they go through the traumas and they start cleaning their brain out. And then when the person's comfortable, they said, okay, why don't you start enjoying the facility? We've got concerts going on outside. We've got, games. We've got all kinds of fun stuff to enjoy, So it's a little different that way. They're not so quick to send you back, have fun. And like John Edwards said in one of his interviews, he says, we don't do these transitions alone. When you're born into a group of people who are trying to shower you with, we're glad you're here. Mm. Same thing when you die. And they showed that too. When you die, there are people to assist, like the movie Always. Another one I love because she explains to Richard Dreyfuss, you're here to be a guardian angel to someone else. You're going to teach a new guy who wants to be a pilot just like somebody taught you. Mm. And I just love the way he goes through it because he said, well, how do I do that? Well, when you speak, they hear you in their heads as if it's their own thoughts. Well, the funny thing about the movie is, of course, Richard Dreyfuss can't leave it alone. He starts, talking and stuff and telling the guy, you're not listening to me. Turn right, turn right. He says, oh, this is going to be too much fun. So he meets up with his old friends and he starts playing tricks on them. So, which makes it just hysterical because you're watching this whole scenario from the physical, level, and it's just too funny. He's just playing with them. And okay. So anyways, that's a great beginning of that movie too. Another one Hollywood did. So, the point I wanted to bring in this time was this whole idea really hit me in the face about 10 years ago when I was listening to Abraham Hicks. And she started going through the exercise we talked about in the first video, where she said, look at all of the things you do day in and day out. And in your mind, you're pretty clear. I'm doing this to be happy. I'm doing this so my wife will be happy. I'm doing this so my kids will be happy. I'm doing this so we'll be happy on vacation. Happy, happy, happy. You go to a job you don't like. You're doing this you don't like. You're sacrificing because in the future, you're going to be happy.
Working towards something.
Towards something. It's not here now. She says, well, here's a little exercise we're going to do.
Then we're in the future. We're not present.
Right. Here's a little exercise we're going to do.
Okay.
What is happy? Okay, I don't know. Well, every one of us knows the answer to this. Let's do it right now. Let's all think of something that makes us happy. A lot of people say, let's go to your happy place, right? Mine happens to be Daytona Beach. I've been to beaches all over the world. I'm sorry, I love Daytona Beach. By growing up. So anytime I want to be happy, I'm laying in the sand at Daytona Beach, listening to the surf, ready to go body surfing, listening to the seagulls. That's happy. Yes, that makes me happy. Well, what just happened in your head? I interpreted that experience that I'm feeling as happy. Something in my head just switched on that made me feel happy. Her point is those two events are not necessarily tied together. You turned on happy. you can turn it off. You can turn it on and off anytime you want to. It's not related to money. It's not related to car repairs. It's not related to any problem in life unless you made it related to that. I had a real problem with that.
You did?
Yes. Wait a minute. I can just turn on happy anytime I want to. It's inappropriate.
Mm.
How can you be happy when I just had a death in the family?
Mm.
That's not right.
Mm.
People are going to judge me for being happy in an inappropriate way. So then I had to go, okay, I want to be happy. There's a lot of good reasons why I want to be happy. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to turn it on right now. But I'm not going to let anybody else know about it. I'm not going to inform my face as an expression. I didn't write that expression, but I'm not going to inform my face that I'm happy. But in fact, back here, I am happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing that every day. I'm turning on happiness. And of course, better things started happening. I got luckier. Things just started showing up. It was working. I'm getting communication. So now, how can I hide that from people? I don't want them to know that I'm happy. Much less, you hear it growing up, everything. Oh, Mr. Happy over there. Doo, 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 doo.
You get to a point where you integrate it into your being.
And you didn't even know you did that. It's all associated.
Yeah.
Here's what I learned recently. Wait a minute. If I can turn on happiness, I can also turn on love.
Mm-hmm.
Love of the universe. Love of the guy who built this planet and put all the plants and animals out here, just as an engineer watching this whole thing function, because I know very well this stuff doesn't maintain itself. I know from keeping my car and my house and refrigerators and the pumps and everything else going, it doesn't maintain itself. There's somebody out there keeping all this stuff running. Well, I am absolutely 100% convinced that there are whole squadrons of entities keeping this thing running.
Mm.
I learned earlier on in my training that there are angels and archangels assigned to species of animals to tell them when to migrate south, when to come back north, where the food is, the 100th monkey, tying all that into it. Like somebody is leading them.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally incarnates into their body so that it can study what's it like and what are the restrictions and should we make any modifications.
Consciousness.
Yeah. Are they subject to diseases that we need to fix?
So if someone is down in the dumps, what would you tell them? How would they turn this switch on? How would this be a fake it till you make it?
There's a lot of that. That's true. But the first thing is to learn, to learn that feeling is under your control. It is not directly tied to the things going on in the world. In fact, in order for you to get up, get out of bed, and go to work, you might have to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're down and depressed, you may be, I'm not that kind of person. I just hit the ground running and I go. Most people are not. Most people can't get out of bed because it's just a miserable day. Why would I do that every day? I'm not that stupid. Right.
Yeah. And because they're unhappy with their lives, it keeps them from making the changes that would make them happy. But I'm a big believer in everything happening externally is a reflection of what's happening internally. And if we turn that on and we start to make those changes inside of us, then the outside starts to change.
How do you go on a job interview if you're not in a good mood? I had a lady interview for a job with me, and she was in a very bad mood. And I finally asked her a question deliberately to trigger her, and she went off. And she said, I guess I blew the interview, huh? And I said, I've been trying to figure out how I can help you. And I know that you're really angry. I hope it's not at me. And she never said anything to that statement. She never said, oh, no, it's not you. It's my husband did something. She never spoke. So all I can say is, yeah, the interview's over.
Huh. Strange.
Yeah. So that's, to me, that's a real obvious example. I mean, if you want to get out of this pit you're in, and you want to pull yourself up with the bootstraps, you want to, get out there, the world's going to laugh with you, okay, get right out there and see what you can do to make it better.
Mm-hmm. And fear of the unknown
Absolutely.
is a big
Absolutely.
obstacle. What would you advise people that are really constricted by fear of the unknown?
Talk to someone else. That's one of the problems that most of us have, is that stuff that we hold on to so dearly, that it hurts so badly. We don't want to talk to somebody else because it's too painful. But it's that other person who said, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That happened to me too. One day I just got over it. Oh, really? Because, we get these ideas in our heads like, well, it takes, 2 years to get over something like that, or some rule we saw somewhere in a movie or something, and we decided, I can't go on. My dog died. I just can't go on, And somebody else says, well, whoever told you that? And you go, oh. And you start to question the rules in your own head. And now you can get past it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways, but this is the one. In my family, this is how you do it. You pull somebody aside. There's 8 of us, so, pull somebody aside and you say, this is what happened to me today. And they go, yeah, that happens to me all the time. So what big deal? What's your problem? That's not a problem? No, that's nothing. Oh, okay. Come back to me when you got a real problem. Okay, I'll go get a real problem. Okay. It's from another person's perspective, you can say, okay, I guess I'm all goofed up on that. I won't do that anymore.
Yeah, because in our minds, we can really compile and make things larger than what they really are. And then when you hear someone else go, hey, there's 3 solutions to that problem, like, which one you want? Then we go, oh, and then that also gives us hope that there's light at the end of this specific tunnel. And yeah.
Well, that's one thing about the Catholic Church that they pride themselves on, is you can sit with a priest, and in most topics, he can say, hey, look, I talk to people like this all day long. What you just said to me is not a big deal. This is what we call a venial sin. I mean, we got the category, the venial sin, the mortal sin, the sacrilege, two Our Fathers and a Hail Mary, and twice a week, and boom, you're good to go. And you went, that's it? That's all it was? Oh, yeah, that's not a big deal. I got other people that got big deals. You don't have a big deal.
Now, is that not validating what they're going through? Because maybe to them it is a really big deal, even though it may seem minute to us. What if it is big to them?
The way I just said it is very rare for a priest to say that. He normally says, oh, that's just a venial sin, right? If he says anything. But by the penance that you got, that was nothing, or he'll say, I can't forgive that yet. You have to do this, this, and this to pay for what you just did, because you really hurt people. And then I can give you forgiveness. That's the rule of the church, But in the dialogue, you summarize, how big of a deal it was. The other thing is, we went to a seminar, and in one weekend, they remove a lot of the baggage from your head. And the biggest exercise they did was, you're in a room with 100, 150 people, and the leader reads this document that talks about life. And you're 4 years old, and then this thing happens, and you're 5 years old, and that thing happens. Then you get to 12 years old, and stuff happens, which is really the milestones that I learned in developmental psychology. These are the times in people's lives where stuff happens,
Mm-hmm.
And as you get to this part, in my case, it was 5 years old, you raise your hand and say, hey, I want to tell you something. So you come to the microphone and you talk about something. Normally, it's about some traumatic event you went through. Well, the amazing thing about this is you listen to 150 other people, and you're listening to what happened to them, and you're thinking, man, I'm glad that never happened in my life. Holy smokes. They do this in Israel. They do it in the Middle East. I mean, these people, their bad day was my entire family was shot, other than me. I was only wounded. You know, they're saying, I mean, you don't want to say this to Americans that, you know, you guys have it pretty good over here. There are some places that have some real stuff going on, you know.
Mhm.
But when they sit in the room, everybody had a family member shot. So to them, it's like, yeah, it's going around. How about that? It's all, yeah. So that puts in perspective that, yeah, it's no bed of roses down here, but could be could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always could be worse. Well, that's most of what I wanted to bring up. Anything else you want to talk about?
Okay. I think that's great. So this is the end of part 2. And make sure you join into part 3. And if you missed part 1, definitely check that one out as well. Thank you.